Hello boys and girls, it's Miss Bonus here. I hope you are all well. So today I have got another other areas video for you, and I'm really excited about today's video because it's going to be a lot of fun. So this week in our time machine we have travelled to the woods, and this week we have been looking at traditional tales such as the Three Little Pigs. Now I wonder, can you remind me what the Three Little Pigs is all about? Pause this video and tell your mummies and daddies what happens in the Three Little Pigs. So in the story there are three little piggies, and they make three houses made out of three different materials to try and stop the wolf from blowing their house down. Can you remember what the first little piggy made his house out of? So the first little piggy made his house out of straw. However, he made his house really quickly and didn't put a lot of time and effort into making his house. So when the wolf came over, he blew and his house fell down. Oh no. Can you remember what the second little piggy made his house out of? You're right, the second little piggy made his house out of sticks. However, he also made his house very quickly and didn't put a lot of time and effort into making it. So when the wolf came over, he blew and the house made of sticks blew down. Oh no. And what about the third little piggy? What did he make his house out of? So the third little piggy did it a little bit differently, and he put a lot of time and effort into making his house, and he made it out of bricks. So when the wolf came over and he tried to blow the third little piggy's house down, his house didn't fall down. Because the third little piggy spent lots of time and he used bricks, which is quite hard and quite sturdy, his house didn't fall down. So today we are going to do a science experiment, and we are going to focus on materials. Like in the Three Little Pigs, the three little pigs used three different materials to make their house. They used straw, sticks, and bricks. And as we know, two of those houses didn't work very well, did they, out of the materials they used, because they were blew down by the wolf. However, one house managed to stay up nice and strong, and it was because it was made out of bricks, which is a really hard material. So our challenge today is going to be a little bit different, but we're going to be focusing on materials. We are going to make a boat out of lots of different materials, and we are going to put our boat on water. And we're going to see which material makes the best boat. So I'm going to be doing the challenge as well, and I have got some different materials. Shall I show you? Well, first of all, I have got a paper boat that I made, and I'm going to be using this in my science experiment. Next, I have some tissue, and I've made this into a little boat. I've used a little bit of sellotape to put the sides up, and this is going to be my next boat. My third boat is made out of tin foil, and I've made it into a little raft like this. And my fourth one is a bowl made out of plastic. And my fifth one is made out of wood. And last but not least, my sixth boat is going to be made out of stone. So as you can see, I have got 6 boats made out of different materials, and you can use as many different materials as you like. You can use 3 different materials, or you could use 8 different materials. It's up to you, but they all need to be different. So maybe you could have a look around your house and see what sort of materials you can find. They don't have to be the same as me. Maybe you've got some other materials such as glass. That's a different material. So have a look around your house and make sure you ask your mummies and daddies permission before you use them in your experiment. I've also got a little friend who's going to help us with our experiment today. Her name is Emily. And she's going to be testing how good the boats are on water for us today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use one boat at a time and put it in a bucket of water. And Emily is going to sit in the boat just like this. And then we're going to see if she stays afloat or not. To keep a record of my results, I'm going to make a note of what happened. So I've got myself some plain piece of paper and I've also got a pen. You can use a pencil if you'd like to, or you can use a whiteboard and pen. It's up to you. The first thing I'm going to do before I do my experiment, I'm going to write down all the different materials that I'm using in my experiment. So I'm going to write down what materials I have. So the first one that I have is paper. So I'm going to write paper at the top of my page, like so. First one, I've got paper. Now my second material is tissue. So I'm going to write tissue as well. Tissue, like so. My next one was tin foil. So I'm going to write tin foil. And this is one that you could have a go at sounding out yourself. There we go, I've written tin foil next at the top. And next one I have is plastic. Plastic. There we go. And my next one was wood. Have a go at writing wood. And my last one was stone. There we go. So I've written all of my materials at the top of my piece of paper. The next thing I'm going to do is draw a line underneath. Like so. And now I'm going to separate my words. I'm going to draw a line down each one to make some columns. And this will just make it a little bit easier when I write down my results. There we go. And as you can see, I've made a table with some rows and some columns to help me when I write down my results. Right, let's get started. So I have filled a bucket full of water, and you can use a bucket, or you could use a sink, or you could use a bathtub. It's up to you what you use. So the first material I'm going to be testing is paper. So I've got my paper boat, I've got my friend Emily, and she's going to sit in the boat. And I want you to make a prediction right now. Do you think the paper boat is the best material to use? What do you think will happen to the boat? Do you think it will stay intact, or do you think the paper will absorb all the water and get it soaking wet? What do you think? So what I think will happen, because the paper is quite light, I think the boat will stay afloat. I think it will stay on top of the water. However, I do think the water will be absorbed by the paper and it will get soaking wet. But let's find out. So I'm going to put our paper boat on top of the water and I'm going to push it slightly and see if Emily makes it to the other end. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Oh dear, I mean, Emily has fallen out of her boat. But let's have a look. So I'm going to rescue Emily first of all and dry her off. Oh dear, can you see what has happened to my boat? It's filled up with water. Let me take it out. Look at all that water that was in the boat. Oh no. And as I am feeling the paper right now, it is soaking wet and all the water has gone through and it's really flimsy. Oh, and as you can see, the boat has started to rip at the bottom as well. Oh no. All the water has been absorbed by the boat and it started to rip. Oh no. So, do you think the paper boat was a good material to use or not? I don't think so. Oh no. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to record my results. So I've got my piece of paper with all my materials, and with our first material, with paper, I'm going to put a big cross in it because it wasn't a very good material to use as a boat. Right, on to the next material, which is tissue. So I've made a tissue boat. I've used a little bit of sellotape at the sides just to keep the sides of it up. I've rescued Emily. She's nice and dry. She survived from sinking in the other boat, and I'm going to put her in the tissue one. There we go. So she's in there, nice and safe, ready to sail on her adventure. And right now, before I put our tissue boat in the water, I want you to make your next prediction. Do you think the tissue will be a good material for the boat? What do you think will happen? Do you think the boat will sink? Or do you think it will stay dry? Have a think. Right, I'm going to put Emily in. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, she's in the water. I'm going to give her a push. Oh no, can you see what's happening? Oh my goodness me, can you see what's happening? The tissue has been absorbed by the water. Oh no, let's rescue Emily. Oh goodness me, can you see all that water dripping through the tissue? Right, let's save Emily. Oh no, I don't think our boat is intact. Can you see how wet the tissue is? The tissue has absorbed all the water and the boat has now broken. Oh no. Right, time to write down our results. So, I've got my table here and tissue is our next one. So what do you think? Do you think the tissue was a good material for a boat, or do you think it was a bad material for a boat? I mean, what happened? The tissue absorbed all of the water, so it was soaking wet. And we actually saw the tissue sink underneath the water. So I'm going to put another big cross in the tissue because I don't think it was a very good material to use for a boat. Right, on to our next one, and our next one is tin foil. So I'm going to put Emily in our tin foil boat. There you go, she's ready. And before I put her in the water, I want you to make your prediction. What do you think will happen when I put the tin foil boat on the water? What do you think will happen? Well, I actually think that this one might stay afloat. And I think this might be okay. Shall we see? Right, 3, 2, 1. She's going in. I'm going to give her a little push so she can go to the other side. Oh, okay. So I'm going to lift Emily out. And you know what? Emily is all dry. She didn't even touch the water. I'm quite surprised. So what do you think? Was the tin foil a good material for the boat, or was it not? Well, I think the tin foil was actually really good because it stayed afloat, it stayed on top of the water, and it didn't get soaked up by all the water either. So Emily had a safe journey from one end of the bucket to the other end. So I'm going to get my results. And for the tin foil, I'm going to put a big tick because Emily stayed nice and dry and our tin foil boat stayed intact. So that was a good one. Let's try our next one, which is our plastic bowl. So I'm going to put Emily in our plastic bowl. And what do you think will happen? Make your prediction. What do you think will happen? Do you think the plastic will be a good material for a boat or a bad material? Well, I think the plastic will be a good material for the boat because plastic feels quite light, so I think it will stay on top of the water, and I don't think it will absorb all the water like the tissue and the paper did. So, shall we test it out? Emily's in the boat. Are you ready, Emily? 3, 2, 1. Oh, there she goes. She's staying afloat. Going to push her so she can make it to the other end. There we go. She's made it. Well done, Emily. Let's take her out of the water. There we go. She's nice and dry as well. She didn't get any water on her. And there is no water inside the boat either. So that means the plastic didn't absorb the water this time. So overall, I think the plastic did a really good job at being a boat for Emily. So I'm going to get my results. I'm going to find plastic, which is here, and I'm going to give it a big tick because I think that was another really good material to use as a boat. So our next one is wood. Ooh, this is a tricky one. I don't really know what to think about wood. I don't know if it will be a good material or a bad material. I want you to make your prediction now. What do you think will happen with the wooden boat? Do you think it will stay afloat, or do you think it will sink to the bottom of the bucket? What do you think? Well, I think the wood is going to absorb all the water. So I don't think it will be a very good material, but shall we find out? So Emily is ready to go. Let's put her in. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, she's staying afloat. Let's give her a little push so she can make it to the other end. Oh, she's made it to the other end. Right, let's take her out. So a little bit of water did come over the top of the boat, but overall Emily was safe and she didn't land in the water. Feeling the wood, it feels like a lot of water has got inside the wood. So it might have been good on the water for a little bit of time, but I think after a while, if Emily was going on a really long adventure in her boat, I do think eventually the wood would absorb all of the water and it would fall apart. So I'm a little bit torn whether to say that was a good or a bad one, but I think because she was on there for a short while and she was on there on the wood on the same time for the other materials, I'm going to give the wood a tick for that one, just because the wood wasn't in the water for a very long time. But I do think if it was on there a little bit longer, then maybe it would have fallen apart. Right, on to our last material, which is stone. What do you think will happen with stone? Do you think it will be a good material for a boat? What do you think? Do you think the stone will stay afloat? Do you think it will absorb all the water? Shall we find out? So, I've got Emily, she's nice and dry. I'm going to put her on top of the stone. And let's see, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh no! What has happened to poor Emily? She's having to swim. Oh no, let's rescue Emily. And as you can see, our stone has sunk to the bottom of the bucket. Oh no! I'm going to rescue our boat. There we go, I'm going to put it on a towel to dry it out. Oh dear, so our stone wasn't a very good boat, was it? What happened when I put the stone in the water? It sank to the bottom of the bucket, didn't it? So the stone is quite heavy, so that's why it sank to the bottom of the bucket. Okay, so I think the stone was probably the worst material out of all the ones that I used. Do you agree? So I'm going to get my piece of paper with all my results. I'm going to find stone, which is at the end, and I'm going to give it a big cross because that one wasn't very good at all, was it? Okay, so now we've used all of our materials, let's have a think about which material was the best boat. So let's have a look at our results. We started off with paper, our paper boat, and I have my paper boat here. It's kind of fallen apart and it has ripped at the bottom. Can you see that? Oh no. So we did put a big cross for our paper boat because it didn't work very well, did it? And I really don't think it was a very good material to use. So our second one was tissue, and again we put a big cross for that one as well because it absorbed all the water and it also fell apart just like the tissue. However, we tried the tin foil and the tin foil worked really well and it didn't really absorb much of the water, and Emily stayed nice and dry on her boat adventure. Then we used plastic, and that one was also a really good material to use as well because Emily didn't get wet at all and the boat stayed together and it didn't absorb a lot of the water. And then our next one was wood, which I would have said it was kind of good but also kind of bad as well because it did absorb quite a lot of the water, but it did stay afloat. So kind of unsure about that one, but we did give it a tick because for the most part it did stay intact and it did do its job for a little bit. And then our last one was stone, which I think was the worst material to use because the stone sank to the very bottom of the bucket, didn't it? And it didn't even let Emily sit in the boat. She couldn't even stay in there. She had to swim for her life. Oh, goodness me. So I think that was definitely the worst material. So I'd say the best one was probably the plastic. I would say the plastic bowl over here was the best material to use for our boat. And I would say the worst one was our stone over here. It wasn't a very good material at all to use for a boat, was it? So that was our science experiment to see which material would make the best boat. So I hope you try this challenge at home and make sure you take a picture or a video and put it up on Tapestry because I think your teachers would love to see how your experiments went. Now you don't have to use the same materials as me at all. You can use whatever materials you can find at home, but make sure you ask your mummies and daddies permission before you use it as well. So I hope you enjoy doing the challenge and I'll see you again next week for another Other Areas activity. Bye.